I know that I said once upon a time that when it came to reviewing Disney movies, I would go in order from oldest to newest, but the urge to review this particular one was just too strong. Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a 1996 animated film loosely based off of the Gothic novel by Victor Hugo, the same author who wrote Les Miserables. The story is pretty similar to the book. It follows a deformed person named Quasimodo who lives as a bell ringer in the famous Notre Dame Cathedral, and it basically follows his search for acceptance from others. Tom Hulce, the guy who played Amadeus in the movie Amadeus, voices Quasimodo, and he actually does a great job. He gives this very soft and gentle presence in his role, and though his singing voice isn't the best, he imbued it with so much passion and heart that you just end up loving it. We also have the supporting characters, Esmeralda and Captain Phoebus, who are voiced by Demi Moore and Kevin Kline respectively, both giving really good vocal performances. Esmeralda is a beautiful, streetwise gypsy dancing girl who befriends Quasimodo and shows him that his soul is truly beautiful, even if the exterior is not. A really good character to represent kindness. And actually, in fact, she is the first person to show Quasimodo kindness in the film. And as a gypsy herself, she understands how it feels to be judged by society for who you are, since in that time gypsies were just seen as criminals. And then Captain Phoebus, we don't get too much of him, but basically he's the captain of the guard in Paris, and he does not approve of his boss's methods, and he just saves people whenever they're in danger, no matter what the cost. Both Phoebus and Esmeralda end up falling in love, and it's not really very interesting to me. When they first meet, they just mostly throw one-liners at each other, but the film does take time out of the film to establish a relationship between the two, instead of just having them meet and immediately fall in love. Talking about supporting characters, we also have Quasimodo's gargoyle friends, Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. God, I fucking hate the gargoyles. They are so annoying, and many of their jokes don't hit. I think only one or two actually made me, like, lightly chuckle, maybe a giggle at the most. And I feel like they are bad because the rest of the film is very dark and serious, and then they put these more cartoonish personalities that sing silly songs and tell juvenile jokes. That being said, if they were treated as figments of Quasimodo's imagination, I would actually accept that. That's a great idea, to introduce your comic relief in such a tragic and sad way. But sadly, closer to the end of the film, we are actually shown things that prove that the gargoyles are actually alive. And the gargoyles are usually the reason why people, or even the most hardcore of Disney fans, they're the reason why a lot of them don't like or just outright hate this film. And now I get to talk about my favorite character, Judge Claude Frollo, a ruthless, self-righteous, and religiously pious judge who is Quasimodo's reluctant guardian, and he has an intense hatred for the gypsy culture, and he seeks to annihilate every single one of them. And he also becomes attracted to Esmeralda as well, as a side note, but we'll get to that again a little bit later. I absolutely love Frollo. He may even be my favorite Disney villain, and he's quite different from the book counterpart, because in the novel he's a priest, in the movie he's a government official, and I love him because he does all the bastardly shit that any other Disney villain can do. But what sets him apart from most of, if not all of the others, is that the filmmakers made him complex. He believes himself to be a soldier of God, even though he's morally corrupt in obvious ways. He does horrible shit, but he justifies his acts, believing that the public sees him as a very respectable and righteous Christian leader. So he feels that he can do no wrong, and that's a great villain, someone who believes that they are right no matter what. The novel focused on very adult themes, including religion and the corruption of church. And not so much the corruption of church, but they do show a little bit of the religion part in there. They also show the other themes in the film as well, which I'll get to later. But this version of Hunchback is basically, yeah, they go with more of a ugly duck tale with how, with the main theme of social acceptance. Frollo would always spin tales about this dark and unaccepting world outside of Notre Dame, but Quasimodo's new friends show him that Frollo may be wrong, and it changes the character, making him more willing to disobey Frollo to help others, or just to establish his own independence. As for the other themes from the book, a lot of them you wouldn't think to see in a Disney animated movie, but to tell the story correctly, they show a strong presence of Christianity or just religion in general throughout Paris. There's rampant death throughout just to up the stakes for the main characters, and even delving into the idea of love and lust. For the former, it's taken in a more realistic way, since Esmeralda falls in love with someone who is not the main character. And then, for the latter, Frollo feels like Esmeralda ignited some strong sexual urges in him. He thinks that it's witchcraft at the time, but also he wants to succumb to his inner desires. Not very Christian-like of him. And showcasing these more adult and serious themes, and of course, showing that the filmmakers were not afraid to inject some taboo subjects into the story, sets Hunchback apart from other Disney animated features. However, the story does have one other flaw, and it's a glaring one for me. It's in the humor, because the brand of humor in Hunchback feels out of place, feeling more juvenile than the rest of the film. But luckily, it doesn't happen too much, and there are still some jokes that are kind of funny. I'm just not coughing up a lung laughing. The animation itself, I do believe that Hunchback of Notre Dame is at the top for the Disney Renaissance as far as animation. And hell, even just standard hand-drawn animation in general, you know, up there with Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. The character animation is more of a realistic design, but at the same time it's more stylized, you know, more Beauty and the Beast, or more like Beauty and the Beast, less like Pocahontas. For the locations and the backdrops, the animation makes everything feel just grand. We get Paris looking incredibly large scale, a beautiful looking Notre Dame, and just the animators did not skip out on showing even the tiniest of details just to enhance what we were looking at, whether it's a view of Paris from Quasimodo's home or the interior of the cathedral. And CG animation is used sparingly throughout, but it's mainly with moving objects and large moving crowds. If you look for it, it is noticeable, but otherwise it doesn't really take you out of the film, and neither does it even when you notice it. And then there's the musical score and the musical numbers, with the animation just pulling out all the stops to make those moments feel large scale. And the score and musical numbers were composed by two greats. It was Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz. Each song represents the strong themes of Hunchback in dynamic ways, each being unique compared to one another, as well as making the film just feel theatrically large as possible. We have the Bells of Notre Dame, which helps set up the grand scale of, you know, the feel of the film. And then you have Out There, which is basically the song that emphasizes social acceptance and Quasimodo's need for it. You have God Help the Outcast, which showcases themes of religion, faith, and hope. You've got Heaven's Light, which exhibits the theme of love. And then finally, my favorite song in the entire movie, Hellfire, featuring the theme of lust. And that's actually Judge Claude Frollo. Did I say that right? Sorry, I had a tongue twister. That's Frollo's song, and Yeah, my favorite song just so happens to be the song sung by my favorite character. It's coincidental, but then it's not at the same time. But of course, this is a Disney musical, and so that means that the Gargoyles can't get away without having their own goddamn awful musical number called A Guy Like You. I don't remember how it goes. I just really hate that song. And then you have the lighthearted and fun Topsy-Turvy, which is a fairly good song. In the end, Hunchback of Notre Dame, or, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame, is one of Disney's most underrated films, and it is, in my opinion, one of the best Disney animated features of all time. Sure, it has flaws, but when it does something right, it's downright amazing. If you like or love seeing a film studio take a risk, this is probably a film that you'll enjoy if you haven't already seen it. But if you enjoy the original novel or just love it, you'll probably be disappointed. But, I mean, you look at the name Disney in front of Hunchback of Notre Dame, and you kind of know what you're getting into. And despite those flaws that I have with the Gargoyles and then the humor, Hunchback of Notre Dame shows what happens when Disney does it right with a great story, memorable characters, wonderful animation, and just fucking amazing songs. Like, these songs, I've been playing on repeat on Spotify every time I go to work. I've been doing that for 2 weeks. That's how obsessed I am with the music again. But despite those flaws, and including everything good that I've said about it, this film definitely deserves my rating of 4.5 reels. Well, that'll do it for me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and farewell until the next video. Bye, guys.